The other thing you received is it's a 2-page front and back evaluation. Please, fill it out, and basically I always use that to improve programming, constantly. So it's very, very helpful to us as well as the graduate school for future, for this particular workshop in the future. So today we're going to talk about research statements, and as I would imagine all of you know, that research statements is something that, I'll go to that first slide. Basically, the research statement is something that is not just for the academic job to which you will apply at some point, if you go the academia route. But that research statement can also be used, as something that, as a framework, as you can continue to build on. It's kind of like your CV, but not really. But you have to always, make it within a limited pages. But it's something that you can continually build on as your, for example, research philosophy changes, your current research changes, your future research interests change. So anyway, just to keep in mind that this is something, just like your CV, that you will, continue to modify, build upon, adapt to various situations as you progress in your career. So what is the purpose? So it's a document that basically it communicates sort of where you are now with your research and what you plan on doing. So it's that trajectory of your research. Even though we are academics, and you hear this also in grant writing, in a number of other writing contexts, but this is also something that you want to present your scholarship in non-specialist terms. So try to avoid, jargon in your field as much as possible, because what happens is that it's not just the people in your field who are on search committees. If it's a national search, they're basically bringing in people from not just your department, but also from other departments. And they might be related departments, or they may not be related departments. And so it's really, really important that all of them are excited about your work, regardless of what field they're in. You also want to place your research in a broad context. So many of you, I saw from the registration, you're in public health or medicine, or you're a public policy, so you might be dealing with policy issues. So try to, try if possible to look at sort of the significance of your work in that broader context. And that's playing around with the writing, and that might take some revision, showing it to people. But I think that so it's not just, oh, I'm just focused on this research project, and it's not really going to affect anything else but just sort of the progress of my research. I mean, no, you really want to make it very clear that this is something that a lot of people can get excited about. And then I also mentioned that, a roadmap for the future. There's an aspect of your research statement, and you'll see the examples that you talk about the future directions for your research. Because again, when you're applying for a job, they're not just interested in what you're currently doing. They want to see, okay, what in five or so years, what's your short-term, long-term plan in terms of if you're going to stay there. I mean, they want you to stay there. They're making an investment if you apply and they're interested in you and they ask you out for an interview and a job talk. I mean, they're investing some money, in you, and if they hire you, they want you to stay. So they really want to see, like, okay, how does that future research fit, is compatible in this department? Is it something that we are interested in as a department? Any questions? So your research statement should answer 3 very basic research questions. basic questions. And so, what is your current research? All right. What have you accomplished? So say if you've published anything at this point, or what you might soon be publishing. What are the kinds of techniques that you use? Do you use ones that are very, very relevant to your field? Is it a technique that maybe, when you're exploring a department, they don't use that much of, and then you basically say, well, I'm using this technique that's very new in the field, and it can, contribute to, this particular field. So I'm just, bringing that out as that's something that you would want to highlight in your current research. And how have you contributed to your field? So this is when, I don't know if you've taken any grant writing classes, but two things that come to mind when you're writing grants is that you need to sell your ideas with what is significant about your project and what is innovative. Well, similarly here, what is significant about your research? How does it contribute to your field? Is it innovative, and how is it innovative? Sometimes the innovation may or may not apply, but if it does, highlight it. And then, I've already mentioned, again, you want specialists and non-specialists, the people in your field and the people not in your field, to care about your work. So, think about that composition of the search committee, when you're trying to draft that aspect. And then again, I've already talked about the future. So here's the basic structure. Okay, so you're going to have some kind of introductory paragraph, and it describes the topics of interest. So you're not delving really really specifically into your projects yet. Right now you're just talking about the topics of interest. And then you get into your research philosophy. So, for example, research philosophy, if you are, I'm a public health, more public health, biomedical background. So, for me, it's like, I would probably say something that I'm very much of a mixed methods researcher. That I combine quantitative and qualitative methods. I think it's important, to when you're studying populations that you get both aspects. And so so again, depending on your field, there must be some some aspect of philosophy that you can contribute into that paragraph. So previous and current research. So again, obviously you want to talk about your dissertation research, but also, you might also be involved in, a number of other, projects as a doctoral student. Maybe as a master's student, you probably don't want to get earlier than that. I would stick mostly with your doctoral education if you've been involved in projects. But if in your master's program you did some amazing stuff, then I would add it as maybe some prior stuff. But again, thinking about page limitations, and we'll go into page limitations a little bit later. But think about it in from that perspective in terms of you don't want to go too yeah. Go ahead.
I've talked about that, and what if you have some practice experience that may be relevant for the research? Would you lay that out? Would you discuss that a little bit in that section?
Practice. So School of Social Work.
Mm-hmm.
So I would, again, I would go back to the job you're applying for and find out if that's relevant. I would imagine in the School of Social Work, it's very, very relevant. Or in a department of psychology, or clinical psychology or something, it would be very, very relevant. So I would think that those would be relevant, but again, I know Sharon has a lot of experience, so you would have to really try to package it. So if it's not just talking about 10 different things. It's like, try to build it around your research philosophy, or try to build it around, what are some of the things you see in that particular department that they're interested in. So really, really highlight it and package it from that perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I've already mentioned the significance and innovative piece. And then also have subsections for each project. So what I mean by that is, again, it's kind of like grammar. You want the reader to easily read your statement, to follow it. And one way of easily following is, headings, subheadings. Make it organized, basically. So, one big heading, current research, and then subheadings up. I'm going to be talking about 3 current projects, and then subheading for one of the projects. So something to that effect. That's what I mean by that. So future research. So this is where you're basically talking about, okay, how can I contribute to the department I'm interested in? And this is where research, doing some research about the department is really, really important. Looking at what some of the other faculty members do that, these might be your future colleagues. What are some of the centers and institutes that are affiliated with your department? Which you could, possibly collaborate with. So again, those collaborations, multidisciplinary aspects will strengthen, that aspect of the statement. So I've already talked a little bit about this. So the research statement, I would not have one research statement. So if you're applying for 5 jobs, I would have 5 research statements. And, unless one particular job or 2 job positions are, almost identical in terms of the, whatever, topics they're interested in, composition of the types of research that already exists. Which I don't think would be the case. So, my biggest recommendation to you is that you basically have sort of a basic plan for your research statement, write it out, but then you would target it to pretty much every single job. Understanding the environment of the university. So if you're applying to UNC, UNC is like a Research 1 position, Research 1 university, right? So, most likely there's not a whole lot of, it's going to be about, heavy on grants, it's going to be about heavy on publications. It may not be so much about teaching, particularly if you're looking for, if you're writing a research statement, most likely it's for more of a research position. So whereas if you're going to a liberal arts school and they're asking for a research statement, they might be interested in how, we would like someone to involve undergraduates into your research, or graduate students into your research. So, again, that's where you tailor your statement to talk about, like, oh, well, these are my interests, this is what I've already been doing that's kind of like that. Does that make sense? Okay. And yes, and so, I highly recommend a different version for each job application to which you put together. And then, so here's just some thoughts about if it's a top-tier research university like UNC, you really want to talk about that, the specific research expertise that you have that you can contribute to this department. Grants, your role on the grants. So if you haven't been awarded any grants specifically, your role and really build up on that. Any manuscripts, and at this stage in your career, you may not have a whole lot of published manuscripts, so, even talk about the manuscripts in preparation. So for the smaller universities, if they do ask for a research statement, it might be more, and we'll see some examples of job descriptions. It might be more of a balance between like teaching and research. So even though they're interested in your research, they want you to somehow intertwine that with the teaching. So if you're in a lab, bringing undergraduates, graduate students into the lab, or somehow involving students in your research. So I've already mentioned, the formatting, organizing, and we have some good examples of statements here that you can see that I think are fairly well organized. So I'm saying 5 pages. I tend to see, about that sort of the maximum, but this is something that I would ask. When you apply to a place, ask if they have a limit, because they won't say in the job description. They'll say a research statement. They won't say a page limit, so I would ask them if they have a page limit. But I would say to you that, unless they give you a page limit of 7 pages, so you can use that, but if they don't, I would try to keep it down to about 5.
Is there kind of variety in that based on disciplines, or because when we do job searches, the research statements tend to be less than 2 pages?
Yes, I've seen that as well. So I've seen anything from like 2 to 5 that are reasonably good. When they're longer than that, they seem to ramble a little bit. So I'm saying, I'm using 5 as sort of it's arbitrary number, but I think you can get your point across in 5 pages. But maybe in your discipline, it might just be 2 pages. And so that would be something that you would need to ask that the department you're applying to. What is your
Communication studies.
and really it's 2 pages. Yeah. Maybe, some of the ones, I've seen are, because they're talking about these very, very specific research projects, maybe they're a little bit longer, I don't know. But yeah, I would that is something that I would ask as a question to the, the contact person for a particular job. I definitely would encourage that you have somebody look over it, a faculty advisor, a mentor, maybe even your peers as well. So it's just definitely. Now, just curious, does the Writing Center help with that kind of task? No, they don't. Okay. Okay, and I'll also say, so as the research coordinator for CFE, I would also be happy to look at it as well. So you can do an individual consultation with me, and I'm happy to look at your research statement and give you some feedback on it.
So one of the questions I have is, what do you look for in the person who's reviewing? Because everybody reviews different ways. It's like you get paper back and they give some good comments, and other than you just get a check. What tips would you have or suggestions?
My suggestion is someone you trust. Someone who's, looking out for your best interests. So whomever that might be. So that could be, a friend who knows academia, like a peer, just another graduate student, or it could be like, a really good mentor. But if your mentor is just way too busy and too self-involved, it's like I wouldn't ask that.
So another suggestion would be to give it to different kinds of people and tell them or ask them, look for organization structure. someone who is a non-expert, can you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's.
To an expert, is it accurate? Those kinds of differential reviews will be much more helpful than this.
Right, and then, like I said, I mean, I'm happy if that's, I just think it's really important that you're not the only person looking at it. So, you know, if you're at that point, you're applying and you're having trouble finding someone, I mean, like I said, you can come up with an app. Oh yeah, and then the other thing, I say this about grants as well. So, you know, find, in your current department, find people and ask them if you can see their research statement, like someone who's been recently hired in your department. I wouldn't ask someone who, you know, has been there for 20 years. I wouldn't ask them for their research statement, but if there's a recent hire in your department or a department like your department, I would definitely ask them, you know, could I see your research statement? Because that's a successful research statement. So that's also another way of just, you know, getting a sense of where you need to go with this. And then, you know, as I say with grant writing, please, like, do not wait until the last minute. I know sometimes you see something and there's the next, you know, the deadline is next week. And sometimes that's what you have to do. I understand that, but if you don't, if you say, for example, you're not applying right now and you're focusing on your dissertation, this might be a good time to try and just sort of practice it out, put together sort of that basic framework. And then once you're ready to apply, then you can, you know, tweak it and, you know, make it very, you know, compatible with a particular job you're applying. Oh, so, I mean, this slide is here only if, are any of you working on a statement of your own at this point? Oh, you are? Okay. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your discipline and where you might be applying to and.
Okay, so I'm in Slavic languages and literatures, and I've already applied to 30 something places, and I'm planning to apply to more, hopefully. And I was actually asking the same question about length because I've had everything from 5 single-spaced pages to 1 double-spaced page as far as what we're looking for. Yeah. So, you know, what do you do then? That would be interesting. And another question I was actually going to ask and bring up, but other people are having this issue, is a lot of the things I'm applying for are either postdocs, which obviously are 1 or 2 years, but obviously they're interested in your research, or visiting assistant professorships that are 1 to 3 years, but they're still asking for a short research statement. And I was going to ask, do you have suggestions? Obviously, I'm not going to be there for very long, and obviously they're trying to squeeze as much teaching out of me as possible.
Oh, okay. So it's mostly a teaching, but
They
they are
are
interested in
interested
research.
in the research, and they normally say in the job description, you know, supply a short research statement, and we're looking for someone whose research supports the mission of the university.
Yeah.
So,
And have you ever asked them what a short research statement means to them?
normally, some of them say 1 to 2 pages, and I've been told by my faculty advisors that normally 1 to 2 pages is what they're looking for.
Okay, so yeah, so in that discipline, in communications, I mean, it sounds like that would be the general. I would say in the sciences and public health, it's like maybe like more 5 pages. But yeah, so it really, I think that's a very, very important question to ask. And so you've been writing a research statement. Is any of this, you know, familiar?
Yeah, it all sounds really familiar, actually.
Okay. Yeah, no, so that's
Makes me feel
good.
better.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So what I thought maybe we can do is, so in your handout, we have some is 3 different, well, actually, no, actually more than that, huh? There's, and I think we tried to balance the humanities and the sciences. This one is, so just so you get the basic structure as I talked about before, this is his introduction, okay? This is this one research statement. Okay. Siddharth Suri is the person at the top. And so you see that, there's some introduction, where he's talking about sort of in general his research interests, his philosophy, and then he goes into past research, and, that goes on for a little. And what I like, I actually like more subheadings, but, at least he does this, where he says, first, my dissertation research, blah, blah, blah. Second, this is something else that this one he's talking about his dissertation research the whole time, but the different components of it. And so he structured it that way. So it's just one project. And then he talks about current research, and then he talks about future research. And then he ends with some, concluding thing, and I think that's always nice, some sort of concluding paragraph. And then, it seems like they always have like references at the end. And if I were you, if some of these references include your publications, I would highlight them. He didn't do that, but he's on some of these publications, so I would definitely highlight that. Okay, so this one is another one. This is James Davis is the next one. And so he first talks about sort of the introduction, philosophy, and then he goes instead of going into current, he talks about it in terms of contributions, and then he talks about it in terms of future introductions. So you see, that's sort of the basic structure. And then the last this is not the last one. The research statement for Lucas Tovar, so this is a much more, I think, scientific one, and so, it's interesting. Graphs, visuals, if you have the space, and if it actually, sometimes pictures are worth 1,000 words. If it makes sense to put some kind of visual or graphic in there, why not? It makes it look pretty. It makes it look sort of unique. And so he also has an intro, but again, basic structure, introduction, previous and ongoing work. I think I would have preferred maybe previous and then current. That's what I would do personally. And then future research, and then he has the heading, but then he also has some subheadings. And I really, really like that, because for me, if I'm, if this is at 11 o'clock at night and I'm tired and, I want it to be easy for me to read this research statement. So think about it from that perspective. Think about it from the reader's perspective. Make it easy for them. And then it ends with references. And then this one is another one. So motivation, research philosophy, kind of the same, kind of introduction, research philosophy there. And then he goes into previous work, and then he goes into future directions. But what he doesn't have is current research. So I'm not sure why, but so anyway, those are basically examples that I thought were pretty decent that I found on the web. But like I said, going to the new hires or the recent hires, within the last maybe say 2 or 3 years in your department, see if they would be willing to share their research statements with you. I think that would be really good. So, I'm sorry, I didn't, what's your name?
Elena?
Elena? So, where did you find your jobs?
So